Having the ability to go into nearly every version of the extra deck monster in the game is a rare ability that most decks in Yu-Gi-Oh! Don't have. One deck that had the potential to do it was Magic-Key. The aesthetically pleasing archetype was a deck that the TCG was eagerly anticipating. Unfortunately, the deck ultimately proved to be yet another flop, hindered by numerous weaknesses, including two of the most poorly constructed categories in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Game. And we'll flesh them all out in today's episode of Failed Cards and Mechanics. Dawn of Majesty would be the debut of this archetype on August 3rd, 2021, a set that saw many new and fun archetypes, like Despia, Stardust, Gizmek, and a new foodie archetype in Suships. However, Magic-Key's artwork and mechanics piqued everyone's interest. It all started with the reveal of the face of the archetype, Calfkiss the Magic-Key Skyblaster, a level 4 normal monster. Alongside this Keys of Solomon / Kingdom Hearts homage came 4 other monsters, with 2 being ritual monsters and 2 fusion monsters. All of them were makeable through the spell card Magic-Key Maftia. This normal spell card that could fusion summon 1 Magic-Key fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from your hand or field as material, or ritual summon 1 Magic-Key ritual monster from your hand by attributing monsters from your hand or field whose total levels equal or exceed its level. If you control a normal monster, you can also send 1 normal monster from your deck to the graveyard as a material or tribute. Maftia was an all-in-one card and the bread and butter for all your plays. This was both a pro and a con, which we will address later on. First, let's list the targets you could get off of Maftia. First off was Magic-Key Mechmusted Betos Buster, a level 4 Dark Ritual with 2000 attack and 2200 defense. You could ritual summon this card with Magic-Key Maftia, and if it's ritual summoned, you can add a Magic-Key card from your deck to your hand. When an attack is declared involving this card and an opponent's monster that has the same attribute as a normal monster or a Magic-Key monster in your grave, once per turn, you can place any number of cards from your hand on the bottom of your deck. And if you do, negate the effects of that opponent's monster until the end of this turn. Then draw the same number of cards placed under the deck. Magic-Key Mechmortar Garethglasser was an Earth level 8 ritual monster with 2000 attack and 2800 defense. It too could be summoned with Maftia and gains 300 attack for each different attribute in your graveyard. On a hard once per turn, whenever your opponent would activate an effect of a monster with the same attribute as a monster in your grave, if at least 2 attributes of monsters were used for this card's ritual summon, this card's quick effect lets you negate the activation, and if you do, destroy that card. Also, if this ritual summon card is sent to the graveyard, you can add 1 Magic-Key monster from your deck to your hand. For the extra deck portion of the deck, Magic-Key Beast on Sonya Bolas was a level 4 Dark with 2200 attack and 2000 defense, taking 1 Magic-Key monster plus a non-token normal monster. If this card is fusion summoned, you can add 1 Magic-Key Maftia from your graveyard to your hand. Once per turn, you can target an attack position monster your opponent controls with the same attribute as a normal monster or a Magic-Key monster in your grave, and change it to defense position. And if you do, it loses 1000 defense. It also banishes any monster destroyed by battle with this card. Magic-Key Dragon Androbyme is a level 8 wind fusion with 2800 attack and 2000 defense, needing a Magic-Key effect monster plus a non-token normal monster. Your opponent can't activate cards or artifacts when it's fusion summoned. And once per turn, you can target a normal monster or a Magic-Key monster in your grave to destroy all monsters your opponent controls with that monster's attribute. Furthermore, if an opponent's monster with the same attribute as a monster in your graveyard is destroyed by battle or card effect, if this card is fusion summoned using 2 different attributes as material, you can draw 1 card on top of another once per turn. The monsters showed promise, however, the spells showed even more potential. Maftia was good, but their field spell was just as great. Magic-Key World lets you add a Magic-Key monster from your deck to your hand when activated. The first time each non-token normal monster you control would be destroyed by battle or card effect each turn, it's not destroyed. During your main phase, you can add a Magic-Key Maftia from your deck to your hand, then place 1 card from your hand on the bottom of your deck. For the traps, Magic-Key Duo was a normal trap that lets you target a normal monster or a Magic-Key monster in your grave, add it to your hand, and then you can either fusion summon 1 Magic-Key fusion monster from your extra deck in defense position, using monsters from your hand or field as the fusion materials, or ritual summon 1 Magic-Key ritual monster from your hand in defense position by attributing monsters from your hand or field whose total levels equal or exceed its level. Magic-Key Unlocking was a counter trap that was live when your opponent activated a spell or trap card while you controlled a Magic-Key ritual monster or a Magic-Key monster special summon from your extra deck. Negate the activation of the card, and if you do, destroy it. Then you can declare an attribute, and if you do, for the rest of that turn, all face-up monsters your opponent controls become that attribute. Analysis. The first wave of support for the deck showed promise. The archetype was an interesting combination of archetype trying to have multiple ways to place powerful effect monsters onto the field, utilizing your main deck rituals and extra deck fusions. All you needed was a Maftia and normal monsters to go off. This would ultimately become a significant hindrance, and one of the many reasons the deck flopped throughout the TCG. The good news was that Maftia did everything. The bad news was that Maftia did everything. It was the heart and soul of the deck. Not seeing Maftia meant you couldn't play the deck until you saw it. This was further complicated by the fact that it was neither a ritual spell nor a fusion spell. Outside of Magic Key World, there was no effective ways to search for this card. Not being a ritual spell meant it couldn't be retrieved with cards like Pre-Prep, Manju, or Herald, and was just as sad as you couldn't search it as a fusion card with Cratchwork or Orpheus Scorpio. We also had the unfortunate problem with the deck that had to utilize multiple normal monsters. Outside of attack power, vanilla beaters are seen as useless, as they have no effect and don't do anything on their own. Seeing multiple of them in your opening hand without Maftia, or drawing them at the wrong time, was a death sentence. There was also a major dilemma floating with the ritual and extra deck monsters. Though most of them had solid effects, most of the requirements were gimmicky. At the same time, there were straightforward, easy effects such as Botzo Buster, which simply granted a free search when ritual summoned. The other Magic Key monsters, like Ansa Bolas, Androbrime, and Gareglasser, had effects that revolved more around attribute requirements for the effects to be impactful. This was already hindered by the fact that Magic Key itself didn't have monsters that covered all attributes, with them only having Dark, Earth, and Wind attributes on lock. So, what was the way to cover this flaw? By running even more Garnets outside of Kafkas. This ranged from anything from Guken Suship Shari to even Blue Eyes. However, the more popular one was Angel Trumpeter. It wasn't due to its attribute, but rather it being an unexpected die target and being a normal tuner monster, which allowed it to be used in link summoning Halqifibrax, which was legal in the TCG at the same time. Outside of that, the attribute-based effects were too situational and rarely triggered. The third issue is its poor resource management, and that was primarily due to the fact that the deck had combined ritual and normal monsters in Magic Key's sole gameplay. Rituals have been one of the most resource-heavy ways of summoning monsters in Yu-Gi-Oh! During the 2010s, they've experimented with different ways to make rituals balanced and rewarding to play. Though they'd get it right with Necros and Drytron, there were multiple flops along the way, like Armageddon, BLS, Nephthys, and now Magic Key. While there was some benefit to play normal monsters in the deck, like having access to advanced ritual art, it doesn't change the fact that combining ritual summoning, a resource-heavy summoning mechanic, with normal monsters, there's no benefit or edge in vanilla attacks that makes up for this resource you use. The final bane was the low attack stat. Unless you were playing the Halqifibrax combo in the deck, no monsters maxed out past 2800 naturally. Cards like Borreload Savage Dragon easily got through these monsters, as well as meta cards like Shiraig. Did we also mention that this deck had no protection against back row? What was quickly seen as hype quickly became dread in the TCG as Magic Key looked to be heading towards a bust status. Once again, we received false hope as they would gain new support in Burst of Destiny in November. In Burst of Destiny, 5 new cards were given to try to fix or cover up Magic Key's flaws. Magnificent Magic Hitamaftil was a level 4 light with 1600 attack and defense. It couldn't be used as material for a single XC summon unless it was a Magic Key monster. If you controlled a Magic Key, you could reveal this card in your hand to give you an extra normal summon of a Magic Key during your main phase that turn. And when this card is normal summoned, you can target one level 4 or lower normal monster, or a level 4 or lower Magic Key monster in your grave, and special summon in defense position. The 2 new additions to the extra deck came in the form of Magic Key Spirit Vepartu and Magic Key Fiend Transferomine. Spirit was a rank 4 water sea serpent with 2000 attack and defense, taking 2 level 4 monsters to make. If this card is XC summoned, you could detach a material from this card to add 1 level 4 or higher normal monster from deck to hand. If it has a normal monster as a material, it gains this effect where, at the start of the damage step, if it battles an opponent's monster with the same attribute as a normal monster or a Magic Key monster in your grave, you can detach a material to make your opponent send that monster to the graveyard. Transferomine was a level 8 Fire Thunder with 2800 attack and defense, needing 1 Magic Key tuner plus 1 or more non-tuner normal monsters. This card can make up to 2 attacks on monsters during each battle phase. Once per turn, if you control this single summon card using at least 2 attributes of monsters, You can set one Magic Key spell or trap directly from your deck to your spell and trap card zone. And if your opponent normal or special summons a monster with the same attribute as a monster in your grave, except near the damage step, you can destroy those monsters on yet another hard once per turn. The new spell card they got was Magic Key Battle. This quick play spell card allows the player to target a normal monster, a Magic Key, or a Magic Key Maftia in your grave and shuffle it into the deck. Then, if you activate this card in response to your opponent's card or effect activation, normal monsters and Magic Key monsters you control, except tokens, are unaffected by your opponent's card effects. And Magic Key Locking rounds out the new support. This trap card requires you to attribute one normal monster or a Magic Key monster you control, then target up to 2 normal monsters and or Magic Key monsters in your graveyard, whose total levels equal 8 or less, and then special summon those monsters in defense position. Then you can choose to apply either the effect to Synchro Summon a Magic Key Synchro monster or Xyz Summon a Magic Key Xyz monster using those monsters you control. Analysis. Maftiel was a welcome addition. Being an extender for your plays by granting an additional normal summon was actually really good. Vet Part 2 offered additional search and recovery for normal monsters. Battle was solid protection, although it required you to have a Magic Key or normal monster in your grave to activate it. Transfer Mine wasn't impactful at all. Having the ability to swing twice is great, but its effects don't show any implementation of OTK in your opponent, and the card was more of a go second card rather than a card you'd want going first. It also required 2 attributes to even activate its effect to fetch a Magic Key spell or trap from your deck. Locking was also in the dumpster bin, needing you to tribute as cost to target cards in your grave, potentially being a minus on your plays if interrupted in any way. So, did this support boost the deck? Not really. Sure, you had more extenders, the form of protection, and new extra deck tools, but it didn't address the bricking and the resources you had to put into making those plays. Even with the variety of monsters you can special summon, it was not impossible to make a big board, especially with the ritual monsters taking a vast amount of resources, which already had little payoff since you had to use Magic Key monsters or normal monsters. To pick at the open magical wound, the monsters still had to rely on attribute-based conditions to be effective in matches. They also didn't improve their poor attack stats. In a format where decks had 3k juggernauts at their whim, it was easy to break apart any board's Magic Key put out. Even with access to resources that other decks had, like the Halki Fibrax package, the deck still struggled as it was still needing to open the right normal monsters or Maftiel to operate into. So, even with a format where they could use the same tools as other tier 1 or meta decks, the deck couldn't use them properly due to the cons outweighing the pros. To put Magic Key's problems in a famous quote, "It's too many cooks in the kitchen." Making a deck that has access to multiple routes, but not enough resources to get all of them, was guaranteed to lead to poor results. Magic Key was placed on a cold back burner and wouldn't receive any updates until 2 years later in Duelist Nexus. The last bit of support Magic Key has received so far is Magic Key Deity Ashtartu, a rank 8 Xyz with 3000 attack and defense, needing 2 level 8 monsters to make. Once per turn, when your normal monster or Magic Key monster destroys a monster by battle, you can detach material from this card, inflict damage to your opponent equal to the destroyed monster's original attack. Its quick effect lets you target one monster your opponent controls with the same attribute as a normal monster or Magic Key monster you control or is in your grave, and detach 1 material from this card. And if you do, banish that monster once per turn during your opponent's main phase. Analysis. Needless to say, this card is just decent. While the battle-oriented effect is lackluster, it gives the ability to banish a monster on your opponent's side of the field. Too bad, as always, the effect was screwed over due to the requirements of having to match attributes as whatever you wanted to banish. Let's also include the fact that all of the support didn't have any way to blow up the backfield. Forbidden Droplets, Dogmatic Punishment, Skill Drain, TCBO, Imperm, and even a Compulse could ruin the deck's day, whether the card is face up or face down. Nothing changed with the addition of this card. So let's recap why this deck failed. Magic Key had a bricking problem due to the amount of garnets needed to even attempt playing it. It solely operated off of Maftia, which was barely searchable in the deck. It had resource management problems due to the variety of monsters that it could make in a deck and extra deck, with the main ones being ritual summoning with garnets, who net you nothing in return. Attribute-based effects were horrendous, as formats and matchups varied from time to time, and Magic Key didn't have a significant amount of cards to even help with the attribute requirements. Back row was this deck's bane, having no way to interact with set or face-up spells and traps outside of catching a card with unlocking, which your opponent could just bait and continue with their plays. Finally, their monsters lacked power stats and were easy to remove, especially in a format filled with decks that had Drytron at its peak and Tri-Brigade. Magic Key seemed like a step in the right direction, but instantly reminded us that putting two of the most challenging issues the game has had problems with addressing, rituals and neural monsters, already alone they're hard to fix. Expecting to put them together and achieve fantastic results, while also giving them access to Synchro's Xyz infusions, makes it look like the Washington Wizards will win the NBA championship. There are several issues that need to be addressed and support that needs to be provided to make Magic Key playable in its pure form. Sadly, the only door Magic Key opens up today is the door to the Hall of Fail. Magic Key joins the army of failed cards and mechanics.